Teams have been on the move. It's been a busy couple of days to start this negotiating window, which is happening right now. To join in on the conversation, we've got former Chargers and Raiders GM Tom Telesco joining us right now. Tom, thanks for taking the time to chat with us.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we called you in because we know you for a decade you were with the LA Chargers and you were of late with the Raiders, so you know your way around. Plus, you drafted one of the guys that Buffalo signed in the free agent market just yesterday in Josh Palmer. What are your memories about Josh? What do you think the Bills are going to see in this guy at this point of his career?
Yeah, I love Josh, and I know you haven't had a chance to interview him yet. When you do, when he gets there, the first thing you're going to see is how mature he is. Really thoughtful, intentional with what he wants to do as a player, and really he was like that from day one. The first day he came in the door as a rookie, he was just really professional with how he handled things. And then you saw that as far as his preparation to play, his practice habits. They showed that really early. So I think you're going to get somebody that loves to play, has been taught the right way, we think, at least when I was with the Chargers, and he's got some really good football in front of him.
You turn on the highlights of a player like Joshua Palmer, and there's some incredible catches that he had during his time with the Chargers. Some of those one-handed grabs in the back of the end zone. What are some of his best traits?
Yeah, when the year that he was in the draft, and I believe he was a junior when he declared. We were looking at a lot of the top corner prospects that year in the SEC, and it just seemed like Josh was the one that was winning a lot of the one-on-one matchups against all these top corners we were looking at. So we started to look at Josh a little bit more, and Josh reminded us a lot of Keenan Allen, similar size, and the way he runs his routes is very similar to Keenan. I mean, he can really separate the top of the route. He's got really strong hands. He can adjust to the football, and he has some sneaky speed to him. And we saw that in college, where he could get behind some defenders in the SEC. He did that with the Chargers as well a little bit. And his production, the 3 years I was with him there, I mean, he also had Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Austin Eckler. So there's only one football to go around. But like I said, he's got a lot of good football in front of him. He's still relatively young. But we love the skills. And when we compare people to Keenan Allen, that was a pretty big statement for us. And just to kind of tie in with the Bills, I mean, we saw Keenan Allen's skills very similar to the way Andre Reed was when Andre Reed was with the Bills. Similar size, similar route running ability, similar strength and play. Now Josh hasn't quite gotten to that Andre Reed, Keenan Allen area yet, but he has a lot of those similar skills.
Yeah, we're talking with former Raiders and Chargers GM Tom Telesco, former St. Francis graduate here in Buffalo, a Buffalo native, and we've known each other for quite some time, so it's good to have you on the show. And I was going to ask you this. The thing they're saying about Josh, as much as anything, one of the standout features about him is that the guy runs routes really well. You said it. I mean, the guy gets separation. And when you're playing with Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler and Mike Williams, you're not going to be wide receiver number one, right? But this guy really, I mean, he was averaging, I think he averaged like 43 catches a year or something like that. Really a productive guy given the quality of talent around him.
Yeah, and I think his second year when Keenan and Mike had some injuries where Josh stepped in and Josh was our leading receiver. So it's all there. And when you're playing with Josh Allen, the ball is going to be where it needs to be. It's going to be on time. It's going to be accurate. And the thing Josh does the best is run routes. I mean, he can just explode out of cuts. He can get a lot of separation that way. And then he has a strong NFL body that he can, even if he's in a crowd, still he can finish catches. But there are a lot of times when he was a young player, we'd watch him in practice. We'd watch him run an out cut. And, it's just really reminiscent of Keenan Allen as far as how he did that. So now his game is kind of keep coming along. But that's what he can do. I mean, and if you have Josh Allen as your quarterback, you need receivers that can separate and get open and catch the football. I mean, it's pretty simple. And Josh can do those things.
Tom, as you've watched the last couple days unfold, we've seen a lot of players go to new teams. Sam Darnold has a new home, so does Justin Fields. But at the same time, we've seen a lot of players re-sign their own. What have you made of the last 2 days in free agency so far?
I'll tell you what, I love what Buffalo's doing. They're doing it to me. Their free agency has been perfect because the best way to do it is re-sign your own players. Number one, and then number two, you kind of selectively supplement some players from outside the organization. But if you can re-sign your own, that's the best way to go. I mean, you know that they fit your culture. You know that they fit your scheme. They've developed in your program. You know everything about them, and that's been the philosophy that I used to try and have. And I think that, and believe me, I would watch the Bills and kind of see how they put their team together and try and learn from what they do too. So, but I love that philosophy. And we saw, I think this year with having so much cap space across the league, a lot of teams just went about and to sign their own players. So that's, when you got the free agency yesterday, when it actually hit, the amount of I'd say top level players, the pool got really small because so many players re-signed with their own clubs. But watching Buffalo, what they did with Terrell Bernard and Rousseau and Shakir, I mean, that's how you build your football team, is to re-sign players like that, supplement a couple here or there with the Josh Palmer type, and away you go.
One of the things as well, you've been through this too a few years ago when the TV deals re-upped and all of a sudden the cap was, skyrocketing and stuff. You were GM at that time. How far in advance, like now, I've already read some stuff where teams are starting to think at 2029, those deals are up again. So, it's getting to the point where you're within shouting distance of that year with some of these contracts, like Josh Allen's 6-year extension. You're getting to the point where that new TV deal could impact the year or two surrounding it in a big way. How much thought goes into, we've got a rash of contracts now, and I know it's 2025, so 2029 on a 4-year deal is exactly when it's going to hit. But that's what's, it's starting to be conjecture about. That's really affecting the length of deals guys are signing these days. Is those 2029 TV contracts?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, part of being a general manager and then having a staff around you that handle cap and contracts and negotiations is projecting forward what you think the cap's going to be, and you can usually you can usually get in the right ballpark where you see it's going to be in 26, 27, 28, and you kind of structure your contracts accordingly. But that's all part of the process. Every free agent signing, even every draft pick, there's always the salary cap component to that signing, and you have to project that forward. And then when you're a team like the Bills, where you have a lot of talented players, typically have to get paid. So you have to do a really good job projecting and ballparking how to fit everybody in. Knowing the cap is going to go up each year, you don't know exactly the percentage, but if you do your homework, you can kind of get in the right ballpark.
Tom,
Right.
you mentioned watching what Buffalo does over the past few years and this offseason as well, how they're building their roster and kind of learning from that. We see Josh Allen agree to terms on a record-setting deal, 6 years, $330 million contract, which includes $250 guaranteed, the largest guarantee ever given to an NFL player. And Brandon Beane was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, and he said, hey, we had conversations with Josh beginning once the offseason hit, and we knew quarterbacks were getting deals. We have to respect our own. What do you learn from a deal like this?
Usually signing one early is the best for the club. So the earlier you can get it done, the better. This one just all lines up because Josh is going to be there a really long time. And I know if I was Brandon, I'd be sleeping really well at night knowing not only that I have Josh Allen, but I have him for a number of years moving forward. And that kind of helps your planning for the rest of your team, because now you have known numbers for the next whatever it is, 3, 4, 5, 6 years with Josh. So you can continue to build around that, knowing exactly how much Josh is going to take of the salary cap. And you move forward. But look, I've been in both positions. I was with the Chargers where we had Phillip Rivers and then Justin Herbert. And as a GM, you sleep really well at night when you have those guys and you have them under contract. And then I got to the Raiders where our quarterback situation was a little bit different. You don't sleep as well at night knowing that you don't have that known player at the position. And even part of the cap, as the cap goes, a known quantity of what the number is going to be moving forward. So, I just thought it's a great deal for the quarterback, it's a great deal for the team, and you can kind of keep building from there.
One of the things we've seen, and I was wondering if you probably had your finger on the pulse of the trends that are going on around the league. One of the things we've noticed of late is shorter and shorter contracts, particularly for guys that are the late free agent signings. A lot of guys are just taking the 1-year deal. I mean, we're getting notified now. Leonard Floyd is going to be released by the San Francisco 49ers. He had a great year in Buffalo on a 1-year deal, went to San Francisco. He's a little bit of a mercenary, but a very good player, and some guys are okay with that. Give me a 1-year deal. I'll get a good, I'm going to have a good year, and I'm going to move on. What do the GMs of the world think about that kind of level of athlete who he's not going to be a 6-year contract, $230 million guy, but he's a really good player who is very happy to sign a short-term deal?
Yeah, I think there's a time and place for everything, and you have to look at with each of these players, age, injury, and then future performance. And when you have veteran players that want to take a 1-year deal, sometimes it's a 1-year deal because they just want to get to a club where they think they have a chance to win. Sometimes it may be a situation where the player feels like, I'm going to bet on myself, and I think I can have a good year and parlay that into a longer-term deal the following year. Or a player like that's coming off an injury like Malcolm Kuhn's with the Raiders, where he's coming off an ACL injury, and I'm going to do a 1-year deal and hopefully get back to the table next year. So, yeah, there's a time and place for all of it. And as a GM, you have to kind of decide, pick and choose between, hey, is this a good 1-year bridge for us? Knowing that there's nothing long-term as far as a long-term answer at this position or not. So, that's all kind of putting the team together. And you're right, though, just in free agency in general, yesterday, there were a lot more 2- and 3-year deals than 5- and 6-year deals, which has changed a little bit. And I think a lot of that is players wanting to get back to the table again when they're still young and get a new deal. Now they take on some risk with that. If they don't play as well, if they get hurt, it's a shorter term deal with not as much security. But it's all putting a team together. Being a GM is a lot more than just drafting players, as Brandon Bean, I'm sure, have told you that before.
Yeah, that's right.
Tom, last one for me. There's so many things that happen throughout a week like this, the negotiating window, and then once the new league year begins as a GM, you're dealing with so much. Is there something that is really important to what GMs do this week that fans and media members may not know or understand?
Trying to remain patient. That's the hardest thing. And sometimes it's not just the outward pressure outside your building. A lot of times it's inside your building. You've got, a coaching staff of 20 plus people. You've got a scouting staff. You've got a lot of stakeholders in your building. Everybody wants to get better and get better quickly. But there's no shortcuts to it. So you got to try and remain patient. All these teams, as soon as your season ends, and for most teams, you're starting your plan for next year, maybe even a little bit after Thanksgiving, putting a lot of time and effort in putting your plan together all the way through February to the beginning of March. And then the key is to kind of stay to that plan, because it will never stay. Whatever your plan A is, it does not go according to plan as far as checking off every box. It never does. Right. So you have to go to plan B, plan C, plan D, have different options, be flexible with it. But you do have to be patient, and it's hard. It really is. We're all competitive. We all want to win. And you see 31 other teams. You see all the action going on. In every NFL building, everyone has the NFL Network on or has ESPN on, and you see all these players coming across the ticker being signed, and you got, an offensive line coach coming up to your door saying, hey, what about me? It's like, hey, just stick with the plan. We're going to be patient here. And that's what you try and preach that the best you can and kind of stay with where you are. But you have to be flexible in free agency, because it's not a draft where you select a player, he's with your team, you move on. They have other options. Which could be a myriad of other things, but also makes the process fun of team building.
Tom, man, thanks so much for spending some time with us. Great seeing you. I hope you make it back to Western New York sometime soon.
Anytime. Can't wait to get back there this summer. And I've got plenty of that time on my hands right now. So, thanks for having me on.